I'm Frank Vaughn. It's May 29th, 2025, and I can't help but smile. We have to begin today's broadcast with a look at our favorite wine-drunk aunt, who isn't actually an aunt. This is Elizabeth May. Petition claims gay genocide. Green Party MP Elizabeth May, Saanich Gulf Islands, yes, she somehow got reelected, has sponsored a petition asking Parliament declare an LGBTQ genocide in Canada. May did not comment on the measure yesterday in her first remarks to the 45th Parliament. Human rights of the Canadian LGBTQ community are endangered. Now, it's not the complete acronym, so apparently the two spirits and all the other confused people aren't included in this genocide that's apparently ongoing here in Canada. We have Pride Month. We went from Pride Day to Pride Month. We're pretty much having a Pride season now. Got parades all over the place. Everybody's open. Everybody's having a good time. We got protective rights. We got C-16. We got so much on the books, but Elizabeth May thinks we got a genocide going. And this is where it gets tricky for Elizabeth May, or at least it should. Elizabeth May, endorsed by MuslimsVote.ca, called for a ceasefire, defended free speech on campus, called to recognize Palestine. This is all in recognition of Palestine, a place where there actually is an ongoing gay genocide. You couldn't find a more discriminatory place in the world to the forget LGBTQIA2S whatever the hell. We're talking just gay people, because the other people don't even get a chance to exist. They're eliminated before they even get started. Can you imagine someone walking down the Gaza Strip dressed up as a furry? Can you imagine it? How she squares these circles, I don't know, because honestly, in the game of politics, it doesn't actually matter. Ideological consistency or making sense doesn't matter. It's just so long as you virtue signal to all the interest groups, you'll probably get elected. I actually wonder if, when it comes to the riding that she's in, if she just gets reelected because people know her, she's a known quantity, they know she's kind of batty and she likes her wine, but it's Elizabeth May, we might as well send her up the river once again. I can't stop smiling at gay genocide here in Canada. It's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. But moving on, we got to do a bit of a history lesson here, because we have experienced a stacking of the Senate under the Liberal government unlike anything that's ever happened before. Now, it was the Justin Trudeau government, but the government's the same. It's the same people. It just got Mark Carney imported from abroad to be the prime minister leading it. But I just want to remind people how things used to be in quaint old Canada. This is a CBC article going all the way back to 2009. Senate's class of 2009 now haunts Stephen Harper, appointed amid promise of reform heralded. Senators now weigh heavily Harper's government. What are they talking about? Pamela Wallin, Patrick Brazeau, and Mike Duffy. Stephen Harper, Senate dilemma. When and how should the PM fill vacant seats in the Red Chamber? Harper's last mass appointment to the Senate in 2008 included Pamela Wallin, Patrick Brazeau, and Mike Duffy, all now embroiled in an expenses controversy. It looks minor in comparison now. This was back in the day when a glass of $12 orange juice could cause national cacophony is what it could cause. But in the era since Trudeau came along, they've run away with the nation's finances. They've run away with bags of all of your money. Trudeau gets to dance off into the sunset without any accountability whatsoever, just like every politician that decides to exit stage left when they're done looting the public treasury. Back in the day, this was a controversy. How Harper became embroiled in the Senate scandal. Now, the only reason I kept the Globe and Mail, because we can go through dozens of these, because first off, it was how bad his Senate appointments were, and the second bit of media coverage, which was wall-to-wall, was Stephen Harper's going to stack the Senate. He's going to nominate nothing but conservatives to the Senate, and it's going to be a terrible thing for Canada. And what did Stephen Harper do? He bowed to public pressure. He bowed to media pressure. This was back in the day before the state was paying for all this, because the state is paying and subsidizing all of these media companies now. Back then, that wasn't happening. Back then, they had to stand on their own merits. Now, they're basically bought and paid for by the taxpayer. It's incredible. But they criticized him for maybe, he hadn't even done it yet, for maybe filling those Senate vacancies with conservatives. Then Trudeau comes along. A lot of the same people who wrote these articles had very little to say as Justin Trudeau stacked this Senate with the most radical liberals imaginable, 95% of which are there. And a lot of us who are watching this, a lot of us alive now, will be dealing with the consequences of that decision, provided Canada survives as a nation. We'll be dealing with the consequences of Trudeau's decisions and the government of Trudeau's decisions until the day we die. It's a check, even if the Conservatives manage to win an election. Nanos now has them 5 points ahead in Ontario. I'm not really surprised. The buyer's remorse was quick. Mark Carney's crisis is all evaporated and proved to be ephemeral. And instead of bringing and restoring accountability and adults back to the table, he's spending money through the Governor General's office, Parliament's in session for 3 weeks, and then they're all going on vacation. There's no crisis at all. And the nation's finances continue to tank. We'll talk about that. But I just want to remind people that the double standard is historical, the double standard is old, and the mistake the Conservatives always make is listening to these people, listening to the Liberals, letting the left label them, instead of just fighting a head-on battle and trying their best to offer an alternative. They worry about this stuff. It's what beat Stephen Harper. He became weak. He lost to Justin Trudeau, for heaven's sake. Speaking of Justin Trudeau, his shoes, not his socks this time, are the cause of some controversy. It's not that he has no class, because he doesn't. It's not the act of wearing the shoes. It's the psychology of a man who would choose to do this on this day. Justin Trudeau isn't a mentally stable, well-adjusted individual. And we let him run this country right into the ground. We created, or I should say the Liberal Party created, a mechanism where they couldn't even remove him from leadership when it was shown that he was toxic waste to their brand. And then they turned around and they couldn't even change that rule. So now Mark Carney will benefit from it. They all voted for their paychecks. They didn't vote for democracy. They didn't vote for anything. But make no mistake, Trudeau's a very unwell individual. Moving on, we have to deal with some bad takes now. People always fall victim to their own gullibility, really, but they also fall victim to people who spin narratives, people who take advantage of their gullibility. People like a fantastic story, and we've covered several of them on this channel, and how they're just fake news of the highest order. You might see this image circulating. King Charles is sitting in a chair, and it has 1867, 2017, 150 years of Canada, and they claim that this means that Canada ended as a nation in 2017 when Trump's victory tour, his reclamation tour, began. As if all the lawsuits between 2020 and 2024 didn't happen, as if he didn't lose the presidency to unparalleled cheating in an election, as if his agenda isn't being opposed right now by the judiciary in the United States, that tremendous headwinds are buffeting the Trump administration in its attempt to do things that are different. The Ukraine war is still raging. Israel is still occupying several different countries, whether you agree with it or not. And many of the things that Trump promised to do are facing those headwinds. But we got to talk about this chair, because people think it means something that it doesn't mean. To commemorate the sesquicentennial, I've never seen that word before, of Confederation in 2017. And while the center block of Parliament is under renovation and the Senate is relocated to the Senate of Canada building, a pair of thrones and a speaker's chair were commissioned from Dominion sculptor Phil White. These were designed in a neoclassical style that both meshes with the Beaux Arts architecture of the building and draws inspiration from the thrones John Pearson, the architect of the center block, conceived in the 1920s. Using English walnut from Windsor Great Park that was donated by Canada's then reigning monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, the thrones were completed by craftsmen and upholsterers from Ontario and Quebec. The royal cipher of Elizabeth II is carved and gilded on the headpiece of the sovereign's throne, and the consort's throne bears bear crowns atop the headpieces, and the escutcheon shield and ribbon of the Royal Coat of Arms of Canada are embroidered on the chair backs. Now, Wikipedia is infamous for being politically biased. But the fact of the matter is, this, which I lifted from Wikipedia, you can then go and check out the source information. We know who commissioned the chairs. We know who built the chairs. We know why the chairs were built, and we know why the dates are on the chairs. They don't mean what you think they mean. Now, there's other bad takes that have come out of Charles, and they've come out of some rather large people like Jack Posobiec and many others that we have to address next. Wayne Tech, SPFX says, Canada annexation intelligence. King Charles just effed Canada. Yes, you have prime ministers and premiers over certain land and territories of Canada. However, Canada is a monarchy. He's right there. So who is the king of Canada or the head of state? King Charles III is the head of the state of Canada. So what did King Charles just do? King Charles III went to Canada and sat on the throne and delivered a speech concerning land acknowledgement in caps, and specifically highlighted the importance of the monarchy in Canada's system of government. I'm following so far. He specifically stated that the labs, I'm assuming this person means lands, belongs to the Anishinaabe people, and that the territory is unceded. Unceded. Not unseated, unceded. They are the rightful indigenous peoples of that land. They first resided in the Great Lakes region of Canada. I'm sorry, I'm smiling. I know the punchline's coming. Of Canada and the United States. They also include the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Potawatomi, Mississaugas, Nipissing, and the Algonquin peoples. The lab's acknowledgement, the land's acknowledgement, means that the current government of Canada is illegitimate and cannot legally oppose United States annexation. Canada belongs to the United States. I shouldn't laugh, but today's a comedic kind of day. I haven't hit refresh on this. At the time that I opened this up, 1.4 thousand people had liked it, 672 had retweeted it, 90 others commented on it. They love the narration. So what I'm failing to understand is, if land acknowledgements mean that the crown is illegitimate and that the land actually belongs to the natives who were here first, how does that equal the United States now owns Canada? How do you get there? But setting that aside for a minute, at great public expense, the king came over to Canada, sat on the throne, and delivered a speech handed to him by the Liberal Party of Canada. They all do land acknowledgements. They don't mean anything. It's literally meant to mollify. They actually do mean something significant. I shouldn't have said they don't mean anything, because they mean something, but they don't mean what these people think it means. It's meant to mollify the chiefs and the people who are advantaged by the Indian Act. It's meant to virtue signal. Every time the Edmonton Oilers play a bloody hockey game, there's a land acknowledgement in the arena. It doesn't do anything, but it does create. I shouldn't say it doesn't do anything, because it creates a pretext. People used to know this stuff before Trump came along and annexation talk. Everybody lost their brains. It's one thing, as I've done on this channel, to compare how better off Canadians would be under a Republican constitutional system, how better your rights would be, how better your system of government would be, how much more powerful you would be as a citizen. Those things remain very true. But I digress. The main point that I'm trying to make here is, we used to know about UN DRIP, about the Sustainable Development Goals, about the United Nations, about the World Economic Forum, about the transfer of indigenous lands to extra governmental bodies, extrajudicial bodies, and how these land acknowledgements were an inroad towards that objective, taking the ability to govern the land under your feet out of the hands of the Canadian people, more out of their hands, and bestowing it to New York and the United Nations. These land acknowledgements are a pretext, a way of paving the way towards that. That's what Charles is involved in. That's what Klaus Schwab was involved in. That's what these characters, these globalists, that's what they're involved in. But then Trump came along, introduced the term 51st state, and everybody forgot all that stuff. Now all of this is a movie that's leading us inevitably towards 51st statehood, even though 51st statehood on the surface doesn't make any sense. Canada, the entire nation of Canada, being absorbed into the United States as a state, one state, is completely unfeasible. It doesn't work. It would be politically disadvantageous to the United States to organize, even if they took over Canada, to structure us as one single state. Doesn't make any sense. It won't lead to lasting peace and harmony, that's for sure. And it certainly wouldn't cement the annexation. People are making incredible, conclusive jumps because they're all desperate. I think they're desperate because Mark Carney won. The Liberals are back in office. And now they're dispensing with Parliament, and they're spending record amounts of money, even more than Justin Trudeau, without even so much as parliamentary oversight. This summer is going to be really interesting. In my video from a couple days ago, I covered a CBC documentary which proudly declared that they had taken down one of the largest content farms on YouTube. They were so proud of themselves. Mr. Clyde Do Something turned me on to this story and turned me on to this documentary during his live stream, and tomorrow, on his Friday night live stream, I will be there. So please tune in. We'll probably be discussing this at some length. Clyde has done something which I think everybody should do and which I'm going to do myself. CBC recently posted on YouTube a video titled "How We Shut Down One of Canada's Biggest News Content Farms." That was the original title. That's what they were proud of. Way outside of CBC's mandate to go after individual channels. They're supposed to provide a culturally diverse spread of content, and they're supposed to provide the news. In the video, CBC journalists took issue with a YouTube channel that had been doing quite well on the platform, producing compilations of popular content creators and public figures, talking points with added commentary read out by a computer-generated voice. The journalists went out of their way and filed complaints with YouTube under the official CBC Canada name, causing YouTube to take action and delete the channel. The channel didn't really violate YouTube's policies, and CBC had no right to complain to try and get them taken down. The video title reflects this. After backlash from citizens and taxpayers concerned about the CBC stepping out of their purview of reporting and entering the realm of policing content, CBC changed the title of the video. The video is currently titled "YouTube Shuts Down Real Talk Politics After CBC News Inquiries," walking back the ownership of having taken the channel down. The owner has been speaking on the X platform about how they were not given any warnings, have not broken any rules, and were not even ever disciplined for the content produced prior or after CBC's correspondence with YouTube. It is outside of CBC's mandate to be policing or reporting, or using its influence to pressure YouTube and any other agency on what can be published on their private platforms. YouTube has been known to comply with government agencies when being asked to remove content and content creators, as the Twitter files has made the public aware of. Inquiring minds want to know what was actually discussed between CBC employees and YouTube. CBC is an agency. They are state media. They are funded by the government, much like state media in many other totalitarian nations in the world. Now, I know we've talked about how it's not just CBC. The other media companies are being subsidized by the state, but CBC is 100% funded by the government of Canada, by the taxpayer. And in their name, as an official government agency, as an adjunct of the state, they're going around getting channels and content removed, and now they're trying to cover it up. You should probably write your ombudsman. Take this as a model. Rewrite it however you want. But this is chilling for Canadian content creators, and this is all before we have to deal with a resurgent Bill C-63, which was the censorship bill. House arrest and ankle bracelets and massive fines for memes. This is before that comes back into the conversation. Thank God we're probably not going to see that until the fall. One last thing I want to talk about today, because King Charles mentioned the privileges or rights, I can't remember the wording, of lawful, law-abiding gun owners. There is one way that the Liberal Party of Canada could weaken the Conservative base. It's not going to convince anybody to vote for them, but it might convince enough people to stop being single-issue voters and maybe stay home or vote for someone else. And that's the Firearms file. This is from the CCFR. Retired Canadian Forces Major Mark Campbell suggests Prime Minister Mark Carney do the logical thing, the smart thing, the fiscally prudent thing by cancelling Trudeau's gun buyback and coming to a reasonable compromise with legal gun owners for now. What if they got rid of the Orders in Council themselves? What if they actually backed off on some of this madness? Because it is madness. It's not going to do anything about street crime. It's not going to do anything about the handguns that are the largest source of violence, gun violence, in our city streets, because handguns are already heavily regulated. And the people who have licenses to possess those handguns aren't doing any of the crimes, because if they were, they wouldn't have the handguns. Or they would have illegal handguns, not legal ones. And it's the same with hunters and people who possess long guns. If you've got a license to carry those guns, to possess those guns, you have a clean criminal record. You have a clean bill of health. The scrutiny that you exist under as a legal gun owner in Canada is very thorough, invasive, and you're under it every single day. You're examined with a fine-tooth comb. Any kind of violence, any kind of even consensual fight that you might get into at a bar or a hockey game, you might get a phone call from the Canadian Firearms Office just to see if you're safe. We're not the source of crime. So this is idle speculation. The Liberals have been on an anti-gun tear for 4 decades or longer. What if they back off? What if they actually back off? They are, what is it now, 3 seats? 2-3 seats shy of a majority? Their position is kind of precarious. The NDP could do a redemption arc, and instead of just rubber stamping like they did under Jagmeet Singh, every single thing the Liberals do into policy, passing all of their legislation and making sure the Liberals stay in office, the NDP could do a redemption arc. And if that's the case, the Liberals will have to cooperate with the Bloc, and that's only going to last for so long. The Bloc Québécois likes discord in Canada. They like a weak Canada. That creates a strong Quebec. As I've said many a time, every other province in this confederation needs to learn from the Quebec model, needs to adopt the Quebec model. But perhaps this minority government is on more precarious ground than many think. And the governing by order in council, the governing through the Governor General's signature, may actually be a sign of weakness. The Conservatives did come in real strong. They didn't win, but it's the strongest ever showing for Conservatives in the history of the nation. And that's interesting. So what if they do back off? Will that be enough to keep some Conservatives in their seats and not vote? I don't know, but it's a possibility because they've got to find it from somewhere. If the impression of a de-radicalized left is what Carney is here to create. So the Liberal Party under Justin Trudeau walked out left with the NDP, lockstep with the NDP, all the way out to the left wing. And then Carney came back and snapped them back to the center and left the NDP out there, and they fell. But to actually cement that image of a return to a Chrétien Martin style of government, they'll have to do something. And maybe this is one of those things that they do. And as always, for those of you who made it to the end, we have a little bit of personal housekeeping. I've got that We Unify conference coming up. It looks like I'm going to have some kind of hosting duties while I'm there or some kind of broadcast duties. We'll see how it all pans out. It's still early days. There's 113 days between now and then. But I want to be in broadcast shape, best, highest form of Frank Vaughan that we can possibly achieve. So to that end, I'm now well into day 2 of fasting, and I've been walking 6 miles, miles with an M, not kilometers, miles, 6 miles a day at a minimum. And I'll be doing that for the next 3 or 4 months, which means sometimes I'm preferring to do it in the morning so it gives max time for recovery 18 hours, 18, 20 hours until I do it again. But it just means that the videos might not come out in the morning. They might come out later in the afternoon, as this one is destined to. I don't think this will be out much before 3 or 4 p.m. because it's screwing up filming in the morning, so I have to do it later. But anyway, we're going to do that. Maybe I'll track it. Maybe I'll talk about it more. But the cost of your new life is your old one. Stop negotiating. It's a fat dude in a chair. That fat dude in the chair has oftentimes been me. I lost 50 pounds, and since I started making videos again, I gained it all back because it's a lot of reading, which is a lot of stationary work, and I haven't been working out. I got to change that. It's also a little stressful. You got a lot of hate that you have to deal with. You got a lot of pressure that you have to deal with behind the scenes, and that's just part of the game. But I can't be dilly-dallying anymore. I got to get this ready. This conference is a really good deadline to make sure I'm ready for. So all that is to say, if there's changes that you want to make in your life, just make them. Just do it. Make it happen. I'm Frank Vaughn, and if you like this work, please consider supporting it via the website. I'll see you in the next one.